All right, we are in section 3.3 where we get to solve multi-step equations. So 3.1 we talked about solving one-step equations. Um, 3.2 we talked about two-step. Now it can be sometimes be two-step, but it's actually going to be multiple steps. So we have to take a look at our main goal is to still get the variable by itself, but there are other operations we have to take a look at before we get to there. So we take a look at some of these examples. Hopefully we'll get a good idea of what we need to do in order to solve these equations. So if we look at our first example, we have 9x plus x minus 7 equals 13. So right off the bat, I notice that I have like terms on one side of the equal sign. I have the 9x plus the 1x. If I combine them, I get 10x minus 7 equals 13. And then from here we can solve the equation. So then I add 7 to both sides. I get 10x equals 20. Divide everything by 10. X equals 2. Okay. Going down to another example, I have 4x minus 7 times by the quantity of x minus 2 equals 26. So from here, we get to, for this particular problem, we have to distribute that negative 7 over the x minus 2 before we solve. So when I distribute this over here and here, it's going to be 4x minus 7x plus 14 equals the 26, because negative times a negative gives you a positive. That's where we get the plus 14 from. Then we combine like terms here and here. So now I got negative 3x plus 14 equals 26. Then I subtract 14 to both sides, so I get negative 3x equals, looks like 12. And then finally divide everything by negative 3. X is going to give me a negative 4 for this particular situation. Okay. Looking at this example here, I have negative 4/5 times by the quantity of 4a minus 1 equals 28. Now, like the example previous, I distributed a value over the parentheses. Here, I'm going to decide, since it's just the inside the parentheses is the only term I have, I'm going to instead multiply both sides by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of negative 4/5 is negative 5/4. So I'm going to do that to both sides. Okay? And once I cancel out those, on one side I have 4a minus 1, and then I look here, I can make this 1, I make this 7. 7 times a negative 5 gives me a negative 35. Now that's much easier to solve without the fraction. So I go from here, I add 1 to both sides here and here. I got 4a equals, looks like a negative 34. And then dividing everything by 4, negative 34 divided by 4 gives me a equals a negative 8.5. Okay, so going down to the next one, very, very similar to the situation we had in the previous example. I'm going to multiply it by this reciprocal, so it's going to be positive 5/3. Positive 5/3. These cancel here, so now I got 2x minus 4 on the right hand side. Both of these are divisible by 3, so then I get 30 on the left hand side. Add 4 to both sides here. I get 34 equals 2x. Dividing everything by 2. X equals 17. Okay? So now we have a story problem. So let's take a look and see what it has to say. It says Edmund and Roberto took a 7-day, 168-hour, 90-mile canoe trip down the Alaskan River. If they paddled at an average rate of 2.5 miles per hour, how many miles did they spend not paddling? It says write and solve an equation to find the answer. So they basically told us that they took a 7 day, so 168 hours. So that's the entire trip. So if you took 7, multiplied by 24, that's where they get the 168 hours. So they have a 90-mile canoe trip down this river. They said that if they paddle at an average of 2.5 miles per hour, how many hours did they not spend paddling? So here's the deal. This is going to help us out. This 2.5 miles per hour. So if they had a 90-mile canoe trip, how many hours did they paddle? So basically you're going to go 90 divided by 2.5, which is going to equal, so if I take 90 divided by 2.5, that gives me 36 hours. So it's going to take them 36 hours to paddle this trip. Well, they were there for 168 hours. So they wanted to know, they want us to write an equation and find the answer. So what we're going to do is this. Since we know that it took 36 hours, so essentially we can take 36, 168 minus 36 to get your answer. So if we take 168 minus 36, it equals 132. So 132 hours was spent not paddling, sleeping or eating, stuff like that. And yeah, that is it. That's how we solve multi-step equations. Hope this helps. Until next time.